Welcome back to Old School Sports and our Out of the Park Baseball 26 series Rescue the Rockies. And the 2036 offseason is finally ready to get underway. Appreciate all of the thoughts and feedback from the worldwide scouting department to our last several episodes. A lot of good advice on how to potentially proceed through the early stages of this offseason that we are going to be talking about in this episode, which will likely be a relatively short one. Going to do a little bit of housekeeping, talk about some of our initial plans for this offseason, and then just sim through award season, see if perhaps we have our ace Leo Martinez earn a third straight Cy Young Award, and get up to the start of free agency, at which point we'll take a look at the pool of players that's out there before we start making any big decisions. Before we get started with that agenda, though, I just want to thank everyone for watching. If you're not subscribed to the channel and you are watching, which is around half of our listeners, would really appreciate it if you do subscribe to the channel. And always appreciate a thumbs up and a like and comments to the episodes to help with the algorithm and help more people find our channel. So appreciate the continued support, whether you're watching your 1,000th episode over the years with us or whether you're a first timer. Thank you for joining us here today. A few key ideas and housekeeping things that we want to talk about right now. Mike Castro, who is one of the top young prospects in baseball, one of the top young prospects in our organization, brought him up at the end of this season, and although he was not productive in the month of September with us, he was very productive in the postseason and helped us win a fourth straight World Series. Have gotten feedback from Wyme943 and Ravenspawn to consider signing him to an extension right now if his price is reasonable following his struggles in the regular season. And I think the price for Castro at this point is not awful. 8-year contract for less than $56 million. And given what we think he could become, doesn't seem like a bad amount to try to lock him up for at all. Did get the feedback also from Undercover Boomer, though, just reminding us that part of the reason that the likes of Kevin Roberts and Leo Martinez were not eligible for the prospect promotion incentive was because we had signed them to an extension before their rookie year and their initial eligibility for the PPI. So we should keep that in mind if that was something that we were really going to focus on. And I do agree that was good feedback from Undercover Boomer, but I ultimately do think that the price that Castro is looking for, given that we think he can be a pretty good offensive player, we like the durability, he's got really good speed, pretty good base running instincts, and is a pretty competent-ish looking corner outfielder. I think there's definitely a thought to try to get him locked up for the medium to long term right now, even though that will rule him out as a potential PPI guy. We do still have Johnny Castillo, who we think is going to be an important rookie for us next year, who might still be a strong contender to compete for a Rookie of the Year. And ultimately, if we can get Castro signed up for a medium to long term at a contract that ends up looking like a bargain, I think that will ultimately outweigh losing out on a draft pick that we could have perhaps gotten for him if he does end up winning a Rookie of the Year next year or competing for a MVP award in the coming seasons. And it definitely does seem like 8 years is the sweet spot. 8 years we'd be averaging about $7 million a year. Now, admittedly, we're buying out minimum seasons and a lot of arbitration seasons, but if we stretch that out to just 9 years, he's looking for $84 million in 10 years. He's looking for a total of over $100 million. So the average annual value really starts sneaking up after those 8 years. So I think that's the type of transaction we're going to look for with him, although we're certainly hoping to get the overall numbers down a little bit. And honestly, given that we think we've got a fair amount of money to spend this upcoming season, we might, we're not going to front load the contract with a guy like him, but we might be willing to pay him a lot more than $1 million, $1.5 million next year. And we've made an offer that Castro is willing to at least think about. 8 years, $48 million total. We made the 8th year a team option rather than a player option just in case. So we will see what happens with that contract. But appreciate the thoughts on Castro, both pro and con, as far as the extension. Ultimately, I think the potential bargain here is just so good that we are going to try to lock him up for the prime of his career, hopefully. And speaking of trying to lock guys up, a ton of discussion around our longtime number 1 or number 2 starter, Noah Schulz, who just opted out of the 6th year of the 6-year deal he signed with us 5 years ago at this point. It was $45 million a year for those 6 years. He had a number of opt-outs, and he just decided to exercise it for the last year. A lot of feedback from the worldwide scouting department on what we should do with the 33-year-old pitcher, who is still very effective at this point, having gone 16-10 last year with over 200 strikeouts and a WAR of over 5. He is, however, definitely at the point where he is declining in terms of his talent. He was looking for a 5-year contract with a player option for the 5th season when we engaged with him. Made several offers back and forth with him trying to get a team option into the contract and just could not do it. He was insistent if there was a 5-year deal that there had to be a player option at the end when he's in his mid to late 30s and might not be all that valuable to us. Gotten a ton of feedback from the worldwide scouting department. Not My Four-Ply, Alkshy, Undercover Boomer, Ravenspawn 3, Avery Sham, Hold Door, Wyme 943, all supportive of bringing him back in various forms. Most of that group, though, suggested trying to go for shorter than the 5 years he was looking for, which I definitely agree with. Patrick DeBonis also kind of a more mixed reaction. I think he was supportive initially, particularly if we could get a shorter deal, but ultimately I think started leaning a little more uncertain, if not a no on Schulz. And then Scott Donovan was a definite and clear no on Schulz at this point. But if you've been looking closely at our money available screen, you know that it's down a little bit. And I have made an offer to Schulz. He was looking for about close to $28 million initially. Through the negotiations, he came down to an average of a little over $27 million a year for those 5 seasons he was looking for. We ultimately offered him an average of more money, $29 million a year, but only for 3 seasons, and he's thinking about that right now. Some of you have brought up the fact that now that he's been with us for 5 years, his 10-5 rights have kicked in, so he essentially has a veto on any potential trade going forward, which was another reason I wanted to try to limit the amount of years that we'd be offering to Schulz. But I think potentially 3 years with a somewhat front-loaded contract is a deal that we can live with. And right now he is willing to think about that. So finding out what happens with the offers that we have at this point made to Mr. Schulz, as I noted, an average of $29 million over 3 years. A number of arbitration eligible players, and then also most recently Mike Castro will be a big focus of the coming few weeks for us as we head towards the beginning of free agency, and hopefully we'll get these contracts locked up in relatively short order. One final thing we've done is decide on what we're going to do in the development lab, and we have made one change based on feedback from Sam Conkle that we thought about. We've taken Chris Kennedy, the 25-year-old reliever who had a really nice year for us a year ago, out of the development lab, and we put Jeff Colson, one of the better pitching prospects in our organization, but a 22-year-old who's also fragile, into a strength and conditioning program to see if we can perhaps make him a little more resilient and healthy and able to be down the line potentially taking the ball for us every fifth day. So ultimately, 7 of the 8 programs that we talked about last time around we're going to go with, and we've added Colson into strength and conditioning while taking Kennedy out. And with that, we're going to start finally moving forward through this off-season, hopefully see if we can get some of these arbitration eligible or potential free agent eligible contracts signed. Ownership wants us to sign Ezekiel Tovar. That's another popular topic of discussion. In general, for the most part, the worldwide scouting department wants us to move on from Tovar with the money he's looking for, which is over $11 million a year for 5 years for a guy who's wrecked and in his mid-30s already. There are definitely a few worldwide scouting department members who want us to keep him since he's been a loyal and very effective Rocky since we first took this team over in 2025. But we're going to let him hit free agency. As we talked about in previous episodes, it looks like there's a pretty interesting class of guys who could be good middle infield types that might hit the market. I can't rule out bringing Tovar back. It's certainly possible he might cost a little more if we let him hit free agency, but I'd like to see what that entire pool looks for before we make any commitment, given that realistically we only have one open spot among the likely 6 infielders that will be making our 26-man roster, because at this point our first base position is taken by Ryan Stone. We're likely to pivot Derby Mahez to shortstop with the potential departure of Tovar. The young prospect Johnny Castillo likely to take over as our second baseman. Rosnile DePaula, who's currently hurt, likely to be our third baseman. And then Trent Kaysen, World Series MVP Trent Kaysen, likely to be our prime utility infielder and a guy who's in the starting lineup for us against left-handed pitching. So really only need to find one more infielder if everyone's healthy, and willing to risk losing Tovar to potentially see the full set of people who actually hit free agency in a few weeks. And we've simmed ahead just a couple of days, continue signing minor league free agents and scouting the international amateur free agent class. And importantly, we've gotten all of our arbitration eligible players signed. We made an offer to everyone this year, which is something that we don't typically do. But Rosnile DePaula will be back at third base. He's still recovering from those recurring back spasms, which have kept him out since the end of the regular season and throughout the playoffs. But presumably he'll be healthy for next year. Number 3 starter Aaron Bell will be back. Ted Miller back, signed him to an extension that the fans are pleased with. Still ultimately would consider moving on from Miller or perhaps one of the other outfielders. Right now we have 6 good major league quality outfielders, including Miller and Castro, to fill 5 spots. We have been investigating heavily whether there's an opportunity to bring in a, not necessarily number 1, but a solid number 2 starter or a great number 3 starter in a trade for one of those excess outfielders. And the prices right now are just too incredibly high. Hoping perhaps we might have an option to move on from an outfielder and bolster the pitching staff for the medium to long term with a trade when we get to the winter meetings next month, but nothing that really stands out to do right now. Injured catcher Mike Girard also signed to an extension, hoping he'll be ready towards the end of spring training. Missed basically this entire year with a torn PCL in his knee, unfortunately, and likely to miss most or all of spring training, but a lot of time for that to change. Bernie Barrera is back, another guy that the fans are pleased to have. The reliever Rich Hannon, the young infielder Derby Mahez, finally eligible for arbitration for the first time. We did think about trying to sign a longer-term extension with both Derby Mahez and the other relatively young infielder Rosnil DePaula. And with the money that those guys were looking through at this point, think it just makes sense to go year to year with both of them through their arbitration seasons, particularly since they both are already fragile in terms of their physical strength and conditioning. And we've simmed forward another day. Noah Schultz's sign. The fan interest increase is amazing, but we have been at 100 since the end of the season when we won our 4th straight World Series. So no change that we can see there, but can show you the full details on the 3-year extension for Noah Schulz at this point now that he's signed. Mentioned that the average was $29 million a year, but we definitely front-loaded at 37 for this upcoming season when we've got a lot of money to spend, and then only $25 million a year for years 2 and 3 when he potentially could be declining, and also when we might want to be investing the money somewhere else. So given that we would have been perfectly content if he had come back for a 6th year with us at $45 million. We're getting him for next year for $8 million less than that. And then the $25 million a year for the 2 years after that. If he doesn't go into a dramatic decline, I think we should generally be fine. Some of you have noted, I get the concerns, heading into the 3rd year when he's going to be in his mid-30s, and given that he has been deteriorating a bit over the last year. But given that there was just nothing easy to do on the trade market for anyone near the quality of Schulz, felt like locking him up, given that we're a team that's won 4 straight World Series and is going to be trying to tie the great Yankees team that won 5 in a row this upcoming season. Wanted to ensure we were as well suited to do that next year as possible. And I believe that having Schulz back should hopefully be a positive step in us trying to repeat again. And with just one day until award season starts with the Gold Glove tomorrow, we've gotten pretty much all of our early off-season business done. Mike Castro has signed that 8-year extension for $48 million total. As I mentioned, we're going to be paying him a lot more than we would these next few years when he'd be making the minimum or his first arbitration season, but a fairly well-balanced contract, $3 million this upcoming year. The 31 and 32 age years for him are the 2-team options at $8 million. So feel like if Castro has any ultimate chance of playing the way that we think he can, given his ratings, think that this could be a very nice contract for us, and appreciate the thoughts of those who suggested investigating it, because he had been so unimpressive in his initial few weeks in the majors back in September. And the thought was he might be willing to sign for something more reasonable now, which he definitely was. And no Gold Gloves for the Rockies this year, but Chris Kennedy, the guy that we just pulled out of the development lab to put the youngster Jeff Colson in, we had been thinking about doing a movement program with Kennedy, given it does look like he's got some untapped potential there. Hopefully he'll still make some improvements just through the normal course of his development. But although he's not a closer, he is named the National League Mariano Rivera Award winner here in 2036. Pitched 61 games for us, 87 and 2/3 innings with a ridiculous 133 strikeouts. An absolutely also ridiculous 8.3 to 1 strikeout to walk ratio. Had a 1.85 ERA, 8-3 record with 2 saves, 21 holds. Had a 4-1 shutdown to meltdown ratio, and for a reliever, a ridiculous 3.6 WAR. Kennedy's a guy who we signed to what we think will be a great extension at this point before he had really done anything in the major leagues. And based on what he did here this year, feeling really good about that contract. Our closer, Adonis Valer, is the guy who got the other 7 first-place votes. Valer probably wondering what he needs to do to win the award. He had a great year as well, 2.28 ERA over 67 innings, 9-3 record, and a league-best 49 saves, 39 shutdowns to 7 meltdowns, and a 2.2 WAR for him. So Anthony Valer, the 26-year-old closer, finishes third in the Mariano Rivera Award voting. Chris Kennedy, the 25-year-old setup man, wins the award this year. Another day forward and another set of awards. One more winner for our Rockies. No surprise here. Kevin Roberts Jr. and our outstanding outfielder who's won 3 of the last 4 MVP awards in the NL, although we don't think he's got a real shot this year, did receive his 3rd Silver Slugger Award, led the National League with 81 walks while slamming 36 home runs, driving in 96 runs, having his 3rd 30-30 season in the last 4 years, and putting up a 132 WRC plus with a WAR of close to 5. Gets the 3rd Silver Slugger of his career. Kind of crazy that he's got as many MVP awards as Silver Sluggers, but there were a number of years where we were kind of playing him all over the outfield, where he didn't really have, I think, the numbers at any specific position to really qualify for the award, at least in terms of the way the game thinks about it. And over a year ago, we had kind of planned out things to try to make Phil Dingwell eligible for the prospect promotion incentive, hoping he'd be a strong Rookie of the Year candidate. Well, the way he ended up performing, we didn't think he was a real serious candidate, and he was not among the 3 players who received votes this year. Pete Gonzalez of the St. Louis Cardinals, who led the National League with 38 home runs while also driving in 94 and putting up a 148 WRC plus, is your overwhelming, albeit non-unanimous, winner of the NL Rookie of the Year this season. In what has become an annual occurrence, our manager, Toby Staveland, who has led us to the playoffs every year since we named him manager in 2026, wins the National League Manager of the Year for a ridiculous 7th consecutive season. He's been our manager at this point now for 11 consecutive playoff appearances and 4 World Series championships in a row and 5 of the last 6. So Staveland continues to do a good job managing the Rockies clubhouse. And we've closed out the season with the big awards over in the American League. Mike Garcia of the Kansas City Royals, 26-year-old out of Burlington, Vermont, is your Cy Young Award winner, led the American League with 17 wins, a 2.39 ERA, and allowed a ridiculous in 2036 4 home runs in 210.2 innings pitched. Ultimately put up a 6.9 WAR for the Royals, as he had an outstanding season. Looks like a really good pitcher, although he is fragile already at the age of 26. And we did get a third consecutive Cy Young Award for Leo Martinez, although this one was definitely much more of a mixed result. 18 first place votes for Martinez, 9 went to Arturo Martinez of the Padres, and 3 to Phil Burrows of the Giants. Chris Kennedy, Adonis Valer, and the recently extended Noah Schulz also received Cy Young Award votes among the Rockies. But Martinez, who was 15-5, led the league in pitcher WAR and quality start percentage, as he has for 3 straight years. This year, 15-5 record with a 2.79 ERA, a sub-1 WHIP, strikeout to per 9 of 8, 4.6 strikeout to walk ratio. Was not quite as dominant as perhaps he had been the previous 2 seasons, but at 26 years old, still on his path to a potentially brilliant career with a 95-33 career record and a 2.59 career ERA. He'll be 27 at the start of next year, hopefully heading right into his prime. And given that the 15 games that he won this year is the least he's won in his 5 full seasons in the majors, that prime could be pretty impressive if he continues to improve from what he's done this past season. We do have a unanimous most valuable player in the American League, Jose Estran, a guy who we looked at back in the international amateur free agent pool back in 2028. Thought he could become a great hitter, and he certainly has for the White Sox organization. We faced him in 4 consecutive World Series at this point. Had an absolutely ridiculous season for the White Sox. Led the American League with 111 runs, 188 hits, 60 doubles, 97 walks, a 337 average, 435 on base percentage, an OPS of over 1,000, 175 WRC plus, and a 9.5 WAR. Just a ridiculous season for Estran, who also drove in over 100 runs and had 22 homers and 24 steals. And in the National League, Sansao Samaro of the Braves, also a unanimous most valuable player. Samaro is a guy we talked a little bit about a few episodes ago, Venezuelan prospect. We faced him in the playoffs this year with the Braves. He had a big season leading the National League in hits, doubles, batting, OPS, slugging percentage, on base percentage, and WRC plus, while putting up a 7.3 WAR for the Braves. Only 22 years old, so certainly think that Samaro could be a strong contender for some future most valuable player awards as well. Kevin Roberts Jr., who, as we mentioned, was seeking a 4th MVP award in 5 years, finished, looks like, 8th in the voting. Leo Martinez, our Cy Young Award winner, also did get some support for the MVP this year. And we've made it to the start of free agency with the big $18 million boost that we got to our budget this year, and the fact that we brought back Schulz for $8 million less than we had been expecting to sign him for, and that the expensive contract from last year of Tovar is off the books, as well as a few other players that we're moving on from. Cody Schreier, who's we declined an option among them. We should be able to be a player for anyone we want in free agency, even though we've already brought Schulz back. The big question is whether there's going to be anyone in free agency worth chasing. The most variable thing and unpredictable thing every year is the international free agents. Would love if perhaps one of these right-handed pitchers or perhaps the third baseman or a shortstop on this list are very interesting players to consider. We'll take a quick look here at a very high level. Doesn't look like the most impressive crew of... Oh, I am mistaken. I was saying how it wasn't the most impressive crew, but the last two pitchers to look at, Megavolt Sugunao Shimada out of Japan, potentially electric stuff, incredible movement on his pitches, only a 2-pitch arsenal at the age of 28, but 40 stamina, throws in the triple digits. Think he could potentially be a incredible reliever. Now he's looking for $23.2 million. Don't really know with how good our bullpen is that he's a guy for us to pursue. Satoya Wada, looking for $10 million. This guy's a potential starter, which is interesting. 31 years old, so he's a veteran. Kind of looks like a 5-inning starter. Don't love the low leadership and low adaptability, but 4-pitch arsenal, including an incredible cutter, decent movement on his pitches, okay stuff, okay control. With the money he's looking for, depending on the number of years, could be a guy to consider getting into the mix. Right now he's looking for a 5-year deal with a player option for the final season. Certainly someone to think about and continue getting to know more about. Pretty interesting player also with the second baseman Jorge Grasshopper Roman, second baseman out of Cuba, looking for $35 million. Looks like a very good defensive player, very good speed, and a potentially incredible contact and gap power combination, with admittedly poor home run power and not the greatest eye in the world. But we think he could be a very interesting guy to consider. So Grasshopper Roman, we've got the money to go after him if we want to. Now he's looking for 6 years at $35 million a season, which would take him into his mid to late 30s. Given his age and the fact that we're realistically probably more looking for a backup infielder than someone who's going to be a starter, might not be a perfect guy for us to consider. But between Roman, Wada, and Shimada, definitely 3 pretty interesting free agents on the market this year from the international class. Looking at things more broadly, taking a look at the pitchers who are available, Shimada and Wada among the best. Justin Martinez going to be out all of next year. Jordan Wood's going to miss all of spring training and the start of the season. And we let go Kevin Canty, who had been in our organization for several years. Didn't sign him. He has got some injury issues, still recovering from a torn flexor tendon, and his control was always a potential issue. So not the deepest class of free agents. Tend to think Wada is perhaps the most interesting one for us to consider if we wanted to supplement our pitching staff. Taking a look at the batters who are available, not surprisingly, Roman high on the list. We don't really have any need or desire to go after some of the top outfielders who are available, given that we've got a glut of outfielders. But there are several potentially interesting infielders available who could help give us kind of that 6th infielder that we were talking about bringing on board. Clearly Roman, looking for $35 million, would be the most expensive. Maddox Maloney looking for about $20 million. Probably a little more than would be ideal for a guy who, again, we only need to be a utility infielder, although realistically, we've got the money to overpay for somebody. Jairo Padilla looking for $14 million, another guy that we thought might hit the class. Elian Pena, also looking for around $14.5 million, really like his glove and some of the personality traits. Second baseman Wyatt Sanford, wrecked physically, looking for close to $15 million, might not be a perfect fit for us. Jet Williams, fragile physically, looking for $13 a year. Jesus Made, another fragile guy, soon to be 30 years old, looking for about $16 million a year. Jalen Miller, looking for a little bit less at $12 million, but he doesn't necessarily bring the really good and versatile defense and speed that we'd ideally like to have from a utility infielder. Second baseman Armando Cruz, looking for $10 million. With him, a little less impressed with the bat, although certainly a nice looking glove there. Our buddy Ezekiel Tovar still in the mix, looking for a bit more money. He was looking for about 11.5 when we talked to him. Now that he's on the open market, looking for 12.5 over the same 5 years. So certainly could consider still bringing him back. Fabian Lopez, 31 years old, fragile, looking for about $12 million. And then Cole Young, looking for 14, 33-year-old. We also let go Luke Dickerson, who's now looking for about $7.2 million. So there are a lot of infield options in kind of the $10 to $15 million range who could work for us. But as I noted, we do, if we want to go crazy, have the money to go after Jorge Roman, although it does look like he's got a disruptive influence in the clubhouse, and some of the comments about him seldom factoring loyalty in decisions and often fails to run out plays indicate he might not be a perfect fit for us given his age. But certainly a lot of interesting players to consider, and a pretty impressive top end of the class with international free agents, with Shimada, Roman, and Wada being some very interesting new players to consider potentially bringing on board. So while we don't really have a ton of holes to fill, again, as I think about this team, it's really just an infielder and maybe a starting pitcher or a reliever to help us, but those are honestly to some extent luxury items for us at this point, given some of the depth that we've got in our upper levels of our farm system in AA and AAA as far as young pitchers in their early to mid 20s. But if we've got money to spend, probably we'll try to spend it somehow. So would love some thoughts from the Worldwide Scouting Department on what you might try to do with this bounty that we have available this year. Would have thought that Schulz was going to be the big decision that we made, but with some of the pitchers and infielders who are available, certainly have the opportunity to continue improving this team as we try to set ourselves up for another World Series championship until in 2037. Until our next episode, thanks so much for watching, and hope you have a great day.